Let's start with a statement that sounds simple, but it's the reason this whole series exists. If money is the measuring stick and that measuring stick can move, then the question is, should your plan move too? Because you can do everything right on paper. You can have a great portfolio, you can have a great safe withdrawal rate, you can feel like you're getting ahead, and yet you could still wake up one day feeling like life got more expensive without your permission. And so the reality is, this is not just a headline problem, this is a real life problem. And so before we get into today's episode, I want to tie this directly to what we covered last time that's going to connect to this series so that it flows well. We talked about how the US dollar became the center of global trade and reserves after World War II, and why market depth and trust matters, why the treasury market became a global benchmark, and why countries don't just flip a switch and dump the dollar overnight. And we also talked about what's changing right now. The dollar is still dominant, but the world is diversifying at the margins. I mentioned a statistic from IMF's call for data back in 2025 Q3, and it showed that the dollar remains 56.92% of the reserve. Still number one by a mile, but the long run story is gradual diversification. That's the key, not increased dependence. We also touched a little bit on central banks and why they've been persistent buyers of gold. The World Gold Council reported central bank net purchases of about 863 tons in 2025. And it's not gold replaces the dollar, but gold is becoming more relevant as a diversifying reserve asset during periods of uncertainty. And we touched on U.S. debt as a real constraint that influences policy choices over time, not just a talking point. That was the macro foundation. But today is the translation. Today is how this matters for personal and family wealth in the real world. Overweighting retirees and near retirees, but still speaking to the high income earners who's building wealth right now. Because the reality is this conversation matters abroad. And so here's the AMG lens. Our job is to translate complexity into decisions, cash flow, taxes, investments, positioning, retirement, income, structure, coordination, planning. We just try to make sure nothing important gets missed. And so if the measuring stick is moving, the question is, what do I think about it? And what do we think about the US dollar? Now, the question is, what does that mean for decisions that we're helping clients make this year and the lifestyle that we're trying to help them protect? Let's make the real life version of this simple. When the measuring stick becomes less stable, households fill in really in like three different places. First, it's lifestyle inflation, not headline inflation. Lifestyle inflation is what matters. Second is distribution complexity, the which dollar do I spend type of question. And third is sequence of returns risk. What happens when markets don't cooperate early in retirement? Those three things sound academic until you attach real numbers to them, so let's go ahead and do that. Let's start with lifestyle inflation because it's the most relatable. A lot of families don't notice inflation as a single event. They notice it as a slow leak. The grocery bill, right? One that we all know of, it creeps up. Insurance renewals jump. Travel costs feel unpredictable. Services get more expensive. Healthcare is its own world in and of itself. Here's a concrete way to anchor grocery costs using government benchmarks. So this is a great example. The USDA publishes monthly food plans that estimate the cost of nutritious diet at different cost levels. If you take the moderate cost plan as a reasonable middle benchmark, we can compare a family's at-home food costs then now using the USDA's own published tables. In March of 2015, if you model a family of 5 as 2 adults and 3 kids, and you use the USDA's moderate cost monthly figures for each person, you get to a little over $1,300 per month before the USDA's household size adjustment. The USDA then suggests a 5% reduction for households of 5 or 6. That puts an estimate at roughly $1,245 per month, which is odd to me because why would the USDA think you're spending less or you get a reduction with less people? But either way, that's maybe for a different conversation. Now fast forward to December of 2025. Using the SDA's moderate cost plan again with the same family structure, the individual monthly cost sum of about $1,658. and applying this same 5% household reduction, it lands around $1,575 per month. So just in that one category, food at home, you're talking about roughly $330 more per month for the same household structure, about $4,000 more per year. Before we even talk about eating out, before we talk about travel, before we talk about insurance, before we talk about healthcare, that's lifestyle inflation. Now, let's move to distribution complexity, because this is where high net worth families can accidentally create a cascade of costs. Here's a scenario that is common. A retired couple is living comfortably. They're not extravagant. They have Social Security. Maybe they have a pension. They draw from their portfolio and they keep their burn rate reasonable. We're talking about how much money they spend in relationship to how much money they have. That's effectively a burn rate or a withdrawal rate. And then all of a sudden life happens. A roof, a family event, a medical expense, helping a child, a major home repair. And let's say they need $35,000 of additional spending this year. Here's the mistake that happens constantly. The default move, just pull it from the IRA. But the IRA is not just an account, it's an income engine from the IRS's perspective. So let's make the math real. Assume their modified adjusted gross income is $210,000 before the extra withdrawal. Well, that's under the 2026 Medicare IRMA first threshold for joint filers, which is $218,000. Now, they take the extra $35,000 distribution, and now their modified adjusted gross income jumps to $245,000. Well, what happens? They just crossed into the next Medicare premium tier. CMS shows that for 2026, the standard Part B premium, $202.90 per person per month. And that's the case as long as it's below $218,000 for joint filers. In the next bracket, over $218,000 and up to $274,000, the total Part B premium becomes $284 per person per month. That's an $81 increase per person per month. For a couple, that's $162.40 per month, or about $19.49 per year, just an increase in Part B premium caused by crossing the threshold. One distribution with no thought. And that's before we even talk about Part D surcharges, which, by the way, they also charge an increase, a IRMA increase surcharge in that first income tier, which is small, but it's still $14.50 per person. That's another $29 per month for a couple, $348 per year. So by pulling the $35,000 from the IRA without planning, they didn't just create taxes. And what happened? You created roughly $2,300 per year in additional Medicare-related premiums. Depending on your Part D enrollment, it could be more. Now let's layer on what that $35,000 might mean net after tax. If this couple is effectively in a 22% to 24% federal bracket, and you add state tax depending on where they live or where you guys live in this example, it's realistic that a $35,000 gross IRA withdrawal might net something like $25,000 to $28,000 in spending dollars. And that's before you account for those premium increases. So the I need $35,000 example can become a problem. You need $35,000 gross to net maybe $26,000, and it might create another $2,300 in cost. That's distribution complexity in real money, and that's real life. Now, there's another layer to this I'm not even throwing out there just yet, but I'm going to add it on quickly. The One Big Beautiful Bill Act created a new $6,000 senior deduction per eligible person for 2025 through 2028. That's $12,000 for a married couple who both qualify. But it phases out for taxpayers with modified adjusted gross income over $150,000 for joint filers. For many affluent retirees, that deduction may already be partially or fully phased out 100%, depending on their income structure. But here's the planning lesson. When new deductions and thresholds exist, income spikes can do more damage. Crossing a threshold doesn't just affect the tax bracket. It affects deductions, premium tiers, and how much of your life is actually taxed. This is why we say retirees don't just need a withdrawal strategy. They need a distribution strategy. They need a plan, a structure. It's not how much you pull. It's where you pull it from, how it shows up on your returns, and what other costs are being triggered. Now, let's make the same point, but for high income earners who aren't retired yet or nowhere near retirement, because this macro environment hits you also just through a different door. So here's a common high income scenario. Household has strong W-2 income and significant variable compensation. Maybe it's a bonus, maybe it's RSU vesting, now maybe it's a large commission year. On paper, it's a great problem to have, but it can create planning consequences that are extremely uncomfortable. Now, let's say you're a high income earner, you get an unexpected $150,000 restricted stock vested in the fourth quarter of the year. You're pumped, thrilled. So you should be. You earned it. But it's tax time. That just became taxable income. And in fact, it pushed you into higher marginal brackets. Well, it can reduce the effectiveness of deductions. It can change timing windows for Roth strategies, charitable bunching strategies, or even how you should approach capital gains in your taxable account. Here's the real world trap. If your default move is to treat every high income year as we'll just pay whatever we owe, you end up with a pattern. You earn more, you pay more, you still don't build flexibility. The better move is to use those high income years to build a structure, a savings plan, where you in the future will appreciate those decisions. You'll benefit from it later. The right mix of taxable investments, the right mix of tax deferred accounts and tax free buckets, the right employer plan strategy, and a plan that is aware of how income spikes affect long-term taxes. So whether you're retired or still building, distribution complexity is really about one thing. You need a plan that controls how income shows up, because the tax system is a series of thresholds and triggers, not a flat percentage. It's not that simple. Now, let's talk about sequence risk, because it's the silent killer that macro conversations often distract people from. And here's the story I want you to remember. If you retired in 2000 after the incredible stock market run of the late 1990s and even really the 80s, and you were fully allocated to the S&P 500, which you probably should have been because you would have been killing it and have enjoyed it and it created your wealth. Well, if you changed nothing and that became your income structure, it could become permanently damaged. And for many of you guys that retired in late 90s and never changed your allocation, it probably was. The S&P 500 total return was negative in 2000, negative again in 2001, and negative again in 2002. That's 3 down years in a row. And then later in 2008, well, we all remember that, it fell sharply again, now with a total return of about negative 37% for that year. Now, let's do a simple math illustration so you understand the problem of sequencing. A retiree starts with $2 million in their account, their 401k, their retirement account in January of 2000, fully invested in the S&P 500 because that's what's delivered all of the returns to create the $2 million they have. And then the advisor, talks about this normal withdrawal approach, 4% of the original portfolio, so $80,000 per year. If you apply the S&P 500's total return from 2000, 2001, and 2002, and then you reduce or subtract $80,000 each year for withdrawals, that $2 million portfolio could drop to roughly $1 million by the end of 22. That's not a typo. That's the combination of 3 negative years and withdrawals. And once you're down that far, recovery becomes much more challenging because the portfolio clearly has less capital compounding to cover not only the income that you need each and every year, but of course, recovering the capital in which it's down or the principal value that's down. This is sequence of return risk. And so here's the lesson that applies today. Regardless of what the dollar does, retirement doesn't fail just because of volatility. Retirement fails because you never had a plan to have the ability to navigate the volatility that you know will happen, because it has and it will. You got to have a plan. So let's connect these 3 realities back to the dollar and macro story. A changing currency environment can amplify lifestyle inflation. It can change inflation, can change the behavior of interest rates. It can increase volatility. It can shift policy incentives over time. And all of that lands in the household as stress unless the plan has flexibility. So the macro conversation matters because it changes the background conditions significantly. But the household solution is not to become a macro trader or try to navigate these things on your own. The household solution is to build a plan that functions across a variety of different economic outcomes. That means purchasing power awareness, distribution coordination, and sequence risk protection. And I want you to hear this line clearly because it's the AMG way to say it. Most families don't have an investment problem. They have a coordination problem. Now, let me help you apply this in a rules-based way so you can actually use it. Rule number 1, separate lifestyle money from legacy money. Lifestyle money has one job: fund your life reliably. Legacy money has a different job: grow long-term, tax efficient, without forcing short-term decisions. When you separate these, you stop managing everything like it's fragile. Rule number 2, build a cash flow structure that prevents forced selling. A plan that requires selling growth assets in a down market to fund spending is not a plan designed for resilience. For many households, that means creating layers, near-term liquidity, and spending reserves. Intermediate, high-quality fixed income designed to cover spending during volatility, and long-term growth exposure designed to outpace inflation over time. The purpose is simple. Even if markets have a bad year, your lifestyle doesn't need to have a bad year. Rule number 3, build tax bucket flexibility. If all of your wealth is in a tax-deferred account, every withdrawal is ordinary income, and the government is in the passenger seat with you. If you have taxable, tax-deferred, tax-free buckets, you will have the flexibility to choose how to fund your life each and every year in retirement. You can reduce unnecessary expense, unnecessary tax, unnecessary increase in healthcare. The list goes on and on. Rule number 4, stop treating tax planning like an April event. The best planning moves are time-sensitive. Roth conversions, capital gain management, charitable strategy, distribution sequencing should be planned proactively, not discovered after the year ends. And rule number 5, stress test across different economic environments. If your plan only works if inflation stays low and markets rise smoothly, then that's great, but that's not a plan. That's kind of hope. We test for sticky inflation, market drawdowns, sideways decades, healthcare shocks, policy changes. This isn't intended to scare you, but to make darn certain your plan doesn't break if the environment changes. Now, let me add a very practical concept that ties all of this together for both retirees and high-income earners: decision triggers. A lot of people tell me, look, Andrew, we don't want to overthink this. And I get it. But here's the problem. If you don't have triggers, you end up reacting emotionally when the environment changes. So your plan should have a few simple if-then rules. If inflation stays higher than expected for a multi-year stretch, we evaluate whether the cash flow structure and equity exposure is still appropriate for lifestyle needs. If markets experience a sharp drawdown, we do not automatically sell. We look at the spending runway and the rebalancing discipline before taking risk off. If income spikes and all of a sudden you get a bonus, RSU vest, or business windfall, we don't wait until April. We plan in real time, plan way ahead if possible, because thresholds and deductions are effective by timing. And if healthcare premiums, taxes, or other policy-driven costs rise, we review distribution sequencing, not just portfolio return. That is how you prevent macro stress from becoming household damage. Here's the bottom line. In video 1, we cover the history and plumbing of the dollar and global trade. In this video, did my best to translate it to you in real life. The real life style inflation you can measure, distribution decisions that can trigger real costs like Medicare premiums and sequencing risk that can permanently damage the retirement plan without a cash flow structure. In the next video, we're going to take the same macro foundation, apply it to business owners, because currency and rate environments affect lending, margins, payroll, pricing, power, okay? Especially for businesses that think about growth. But for today, if you're building and protecting personal and family wealth, remember this. Don't try to predict the next decade. Position your plan so your lifestyle stays stable no matter what the headlines do. I'm Andrew Knighted with Asset Management Group. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.